62.
The 62nd Psalm.
Thank you.
My soul waits for God alone. To the choir master, according to Jeduthun, a psalm of David. For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. David is a poet. He's a songwriter. And yet he says, for God alone my soul waits in silence. Sometimes when we see famous people, we just can't say anything. We just sit there and go, ugh. But truly, the only one that should ever
Psalm 62.
that should ever give us that amount of just awe should be God. It should be God alone that causes us to just stop and to wait in silence. We, like David, need to always remember that salvation comes from him, and he is our only rock and our only salvation. It is so easy to start putting our faith in our jobs, our friends, even our church. But we need to remember that our rock, our only rock, is God. He's the only thing that will not fail us. Sometime, this congregation is going to fail you. It won't be there when you need it. It won't understand what you're going through. In some way, it will fail. The best, most Christian people you know will fail you sometime. No matter how good they are, there'll be some time that they just weren't. But God is our rock and our salvation. He won't fail us. He will always be there, and we need to remember that. When you look at empty pews and you think about people that aren't there, how many of them are not sitting there because they had another rock other than God Almighty? And when people failed, they lost faith. We should always do our best to never fail people, to always be there, to do everything, but the fact is you can't. Sometime, you're going to miss it. Someday, somebody is going to be hurting and you're not going to know it. Maybe you do all the time. Debbie's great about that. She'll point at somebody across the room and says, you need to go talk to them. There's something wrong. And I'm oblivious. I can't see it. But you know, the best people sometimes miss it. So we need to make sure that with those people we love, that we tell them, God is your rock. Not people, because people will fail you. The best people will have a bad day. The best people will sin. You may someday see the best person you've ever known commit a sin. And that may just shatter you. You may not know that may be the first and the last time they ever did it. But it's really important that, like David, we know who our rock and our salvation is, and we trust God and God alone. My fortress, I shall not be greatly shaken. Sometimes you've just got to crawl inside of God. If he's a fortress, that means you can get inside. You need to just huddle up and hunker in and let God take the brunt. And I shall not be greatly shaken. He needs to be that fortress, that thing that won't fall. How long will all of you attack a man to batter him like a leaning wall, a tottering fence? They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. David says that's so much better than we do. We just go, why? Why do you just keep on with it? You know, why don't you just let it alone? Let me alone. Sometimes people just batter you. Like shaking a wall, just trying to get a person to fall. We've all been through that, haven't we? We've all known somebody that for no reason other than just to cause somebody trouble, they just pounded on them and shook. They take pleasure in falsehood. Do we know people like that? People who wouldn't know the truth if it bit them? I know some people who take pleasure in falsehood because they believe it. It creates a world for them that they can live in, and they're happy. Every word that comes out of their mouth is the truth to them, no matter what reality is. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. See, you're not the only person that has somebody that makes nice to your face and stabs you in the back. David says it so much prettier, but that's exactly what we say, isn't it? They stay real nice to your face and and as soon as you turn, they cuss you, they tell everybody how bad you are. You know, it gives me some strength to know that even David went through that. That's not something that's just me, you know. And that's one of the big problems, is that we as human beings tend to believe that we're so special and unique, that the problems we have, nobody else has ever had. Nobody's ever gone through that. And David is here saying, yeah, they make nice to me, to my face, and they cuss me behind my back. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence. When you're going through trouble, sometimes you just have to wait in silence for God to act. Sometimes nothing you do, nothing you say will make a difference. Sometimes you have to just say, Lord, I'm waiting. I know you'll get here. For my hope is from him. Let's see. My hope is from him. He only is my rock, my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. On God rests my salvation and my glory. You mean even in the Old Testament, he knew it wasn't just all about his works? On God rests my salvation and my glory. Not on me, on God. My mighty rock, my refuge is God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. You know, he says wait in silence, and then he says pour out your heart. What I get from that is, if you've ever had one of those times when you go through that dark night of the soul and all you can do is just sit there and pray and cry and pray to God, and then there comes a point that you just go and you wait. You've poured it all out and you're trusting and you know that he's coming, and you're waiting now in silence. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balances they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. Those low, no accounts down there, they're just a breath. But what about all those high people, all those people that make you feel so bad because you're here and they're way up there? They're a delusion. Together, you put them both together and they're lighter than a breath. God is the reality. God is that which is strong. Put no trust in extortion. Set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart on them. You ever known somebody that was really good, but the storms of life beat upon them and pounded upon them and hit upon them until they said, oh, well, maybe if I cheat on my taxes, I'll get through this. Maybe if I just take a little. I've known good people who got that in their head that, well, maybe just a little. I'll do this. And David is saying, don't trust that. Don't hope that. Understand that's all going to bring you down. It may look like the only way out, but it's never the way out. Once God has spoken, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God, and that to you, O Lord, belongs steadfast love, for you will render to a man according to his work. I've said to bosses before, you know what? A thank you and a well done and an attaboy is a really good thing, but honestly, I'd rather you put it in my paycheck. What David is saying here is, God's going to put it in your paycheck. He's going to reward you according to your work. The nice thing is that God is like you are with your children. You notice the good and discount of the mistakes. And God does great on a curve. He knows where you started. He knows what he's doing, and his grace will lift you up. If anybody needs to answer the invitation in a public way, you can, as we sing now, number 909.